the Wiggly Podcast. Let your iPod bloom.
Hello, listener. Welcome to this week's instalment of the Wiggly Podcast. There is only Rachel and I here today. Heather and Phil are exactly where, Rach?
Hello, listener. Heather and Phil are in India, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
So this is the first time that Heather's been to India, isn't it? I think?
It is, yeah. It's Heather's first trip, and I do believe it's Phil's first trip too.
Okay.
And it's quite a culture shock to them, because we've heard back from them several times.
Sure it is, yeah.
Having only just made it there anyway.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And when you say having only just made it there, not that we want to take advantage of a person's unfortunate set of circumstances, but elaborate a little bit, Rach.
Oh, well, it was a great story, great Hev story. As usual, the big picture is up there, but Hev doesn't look at the little things like, oh, we need a visa to go there.
Like
and so
communication.
Yes, absolutely. And so the night before they're due to go, somebody happens to mention that they need a visa.
Yeah.
And not only do they need one visa, apparently they need two visas, because they're going into quite a restricted area in northern India.
Yeah.
So all hell breaks loose. And so off they go, on the phones for hours and hours and hours, and couldn't fix it. And so off they go to the High Commission in London, the Indian High Commission, where they sit on the doorstep for a while and miss the flight. And so they have to catch the next flight the next night to make it to India on time, and they only just make it. But they've made it there. They've been to the conference, which has been opened by the Dalai Lama, of all people.
Right.
And Hev has given a talk there. I'm sure she'll elaborate more on that when she returns.
When she comes back, yeah.
But it's been quite a culture shock, because they were going to hire a car.
Right.
And they said on the airplane, several people on the airplane said to them, no, don't do that. Now, can you see Hev not quite being able to see over the steering wheel as it is, because he's a very short person.
In jalopies.
And try to navigate traffic in India.
No, I can't.
It's quite a picture. I thought it was quite funny myself. But
Yeah, well, it would be funny, and it would be a picture.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think you need I mean, you can see why people go to India for such long lengths of time. You know, you need to go there for sort of months on end, purely so that you can negotiate your way around.
Yeah, well, I think it's something like about £10 a day. They can hire a taxi and the driver to take them wherever they want.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's something they're familiar with.
Yeah, that's right.
Certainly Phil, he's not alien to paying people ridiculously small amounts of money for lots of effort.
Absolutely. Unlike Hev, will throw anything at it to get where she wants to go.
Indeed.
So they're there, but they've done the conference. Apparently the other day they were going on down to see the Taj Mahal.
Right. That'll be good. Yeah,
that'll be nice.
That'll be a lovely experience. Fantastic.
And our Alison, who works for us, who grows the plants, she's been there, so she's given them lots of pointers of what to do, where to go.
Yeah, I think Alison went backpacking, didn't she, around India when she was a lot younger?
She did, yes.
Pretty cool. So she's seen quite a lot of northern India.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So when are they back?
They're coming back on Saturday.
And Hev's back in the office when?
Well, she still won't be back in the office until Wednesday, because on Monday she's off to Wiltshire to judge the Farmers' Weekly Awards.
Oh, okay.
And so she'll stop over the night there and then come back Tuesday. Yeah. So she'll be back at Wiggly Wigglers, ready for the next podcast.
Yes, next Thursday. Right, fabulous. Okay, well, just a job. Now, Rach, the last time you and I sat on this couch, we were talking to, I think, Camilla, wasn't it, from Eden, who was looking to set up the Eden podcast. Is that right? That was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
That's quite a while ago, isn't it?
It was a few. And I seem to remember that you were talking a bit about owls.
That's right. We'd had one flown in through the bedroom window and then couldn't get back out again.
Yeah.
He was ringed. So I went to the Natural History Museum website, and there you can put in the number of the bird, put it in, emailed them, and they said they'd be back to me in 6 to 8 weeks. Well, at least 8 weeks has gone by now, and I haven't heard
a dicky bird,
so to speak. Not a dicky bird, no.
Okay, so we might have to chase them up then, possibly.
I'll chase them up, because it is interesting to know where it
would be nice,
from,
and I think you'll find the listener is there with bated breath in anticipation of the next chapter in the story of your barn owl.
Well, he's still out there, because they make a horrible screeching noise at night.
Right.
Although it is slightly quieter, so maybe he's
Yeah.
found his lady friend and maybe
Feeling more
she's laid her
subdued.
eggs.
He's fulfilled his ambitions.
Absolutely. I hope so. Because he's so noisy.
And what about your guinea fowl?
Well, the guinea fowl they're strange little characters. We've got two, a male and a female, but of course you don't know which is which because they're so alike.
Yeah.
But I went on the website and it appears that one makes a different sound to the other.
Right.
So we discovered that way that we had got a male and a female.
Okay.
They stay in a hen house overnight with the hens.
Yeah. They're quite happy to do that, are they? They're quite sociable little birds.
They keep themselves to themselves. Although they stay overnight with the hens, when you let them out in the morning, they go off and do their own thing.
Right.
And they're last to bed at night.
Right.
Which frets my daughter Gemma greatly because she, having finished doing the horses, then shuts the chickens in and comes in for the evening, and the guinea fowl are still wandering round till late in the evening.
Right.
So they are annoying to
Dirty stop-outs.
They are dirty stop-outs, terrible dirty stop-outs. But we've been worried about where the eggs are because we've never seen any eggs from them, and they must be laying somewhere.
Yeah.
So I happened to find the nest, and there must have been about 28 eggs in there, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we collected the eggs,
Yep.
left her with about 3 so that she would keep laying there.
Yeah.
And we've put them in an incubator. Our friend's got an incubator and they're going to try and hatch them.
Oh,
So
wow.
hopefully they'll come through.
Fantastic,
I don't
yeah.
know because I don't know anything about incubation
Should
eggs.
get some out of them anyway.
Yeah.
I remember having guinea fowls as a kid, and they guinea fowl even, very robust little birds.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to look after,
Yeah.
much more robust than a hen chick, for instance. So
But very much like the howl, they were very noisy early on in the spring.
okay,
And so noisy that you almost felt like, oh, I'm going to chop their heads off.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
were that noisy.
Yeah.
But now they've calmed down,
Yeah.
so it must be obviously the season to make the noise.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they calm down. But since that moment of collecting the eggs, she hasn't laid any more.
right,
Or she's gone and laid them somewhere else, secretly.
yeah.
And now we don't know where that nest is.
Oh, blimey.
And so maybe she'll go to sit on her new nest, wherever it may be, and we'll someday see some little chicks about.
We shall see. It'd be great to see some little guinea fowl chicks about.
Yeah. But the website I read said they are dreadful mothers.
Right.
They're not good at all. And the website said that it's best to collect them and put them under a nice broody hen who will look after them much better.
The last time I saw a guinea fowl with chicks, was at Kirsten Bosch Botanical Gardens in South Africa last year.
Really?
On holiday, yeah.
Well, that's where
Because
they
they were kind of
originate
wandering
from.
through the... Well, the guinea fowl, I think, found pretty much right the way across the African continent, because you tend to see them pretty much anywhere that you go. But certainly right up from South Africa, right up through to Kenya and whatnot, you get a guinea fowl.
Yeah.
And then a couple of different species. I think they didn't mind them in the botanical gardens because guinea fowl don't scratch, do they, like hens?
No, they're great. We've just dug over the garden and immediately you turn the soil, the hens have been on there and tried to dig it all up again.
Right.
So we've had to put some fencing across. But the guinea fowl, no, they don't do that. They just peck. They peck at the insects and things that's on the long tall grass and down in with several anthills around by my place, and so they peck at them quite a bit.
Right.
But they don't scratch like a chicken.
So a bird that you can have in the garden, possibly.
Yeah, I would definitely say that they were one that you could keep in the garden.
And of course, the best thing about guinea fowl is they taste gorgeous.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
I've never
They do.
tried one. But the idea of them is, if they do hatch out, that they will go up to the pheasants.
Right.
And because apparently they're very good at creating alarm calls from their noisy, screechy voice when there's something like a fox or something like that about.
Oh, okay.
So,
they're not going to be shot like the poor unfortunate pheasants.
No.
They're just going to be there to...
No, they can go up into the pheasant pens and be released into the woods, which would be quite nice for them, I think.
That'll be really good.
Yeah.
That'll be really good. You never know, you might have a wild colony of guinea fowl in a few years' time.
We might do, yeah.
It'd be brilliant.
But they don't fly high, and so...
not sporting then.
Not sporting, no. And that can be quite dangerous if it doesn't fly high. And
See,
you've got
the
a lot of
last
guns
time I
about,
saw
so-
pheasants being shot, they too didn't fly very high.
No.
Or for very long,
Yeah,
subsequently.
so,
But there you are.
Yeah, no, they're great little birds.
Brilliant.
Hopefully we'll have some chicks.
New adventures.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you know, Hay Festival finished not long ago, and we had a bit of wild weather. And we were supposed to be doing all sorts of things during the course of the week. You know, I'd planned all sorts of wonderful kiddies workshops and planting plugs and things like that. And I did manage to do a bit. I seem to remember Wednesday afternoon, the weather came out, it was quite nice. And then Saturday and Sunday, last weekend, you know, the weather was fine. So I was able to do some paintings and things like that. A few people did enter Farmer Phil's painting competition, which is quite nice. I think there's a few more days yet, listener, to enter the Farmer Phil's painting competition. I think the last date for entries is the 13th of June. So there's a couple of days still to be able to sketch something out. If you fancy some of your artistic talent being daubed onto Phil's office wall, then give it a go. But one thing we meant to do at the Hay Festival was set up some car tyre planters. We were going to do some car tyre planters and grow some potatoes in there, because people do use car tyres for growing potatoes and whatnot. And we must have talked about this previously, because Simon Sherlock, our mate Simon Sherlock, forwarded me a link to a guy called Urban Hayseed, www.urbanhayseed.com. So it's kind of blog/website gentleman that listens to us in the States. And he's really quite enlightening, and it kind of puts you off growing in car tyres, and it makes you think, because car tyres are used for all sorts of different things. And interestingly, I was going to use some crushed up car tyres for a path for a school project that I'm going to start towards the end of June, but I'm rethinking it on the basis
we use them
of this.
on silage pit, of course.
Yeah,
They're great things to put on silage pit.
Yeah, they are.
Very smelly and dirty.
Yeah, they are very smelly and dirty.
I've known all about it when I've been on
tyres,
when I've been on the silage pit, and my husband Mike throws me across a car tyre that is now filled up with water.
What's he doing, throwing you across car tyres?
Well,
he throws you a car tyre, or he throws
when
you...
he throws them at me. But what happens is you fill up your silage pit of a season, then you cover it over with a plastic sheet, and then you put car tyres on the top of it to compress it down to push the air out.
Right.
Then as you open your pit to start feeding your silage to your cows, you then take the car tyres off one by one, and they get pushed up onto the side of the pit, ready for next year to throw them all back on again once you filled your pit up.
Okay.
Of course, during this time, they fill up with water, and then it's nice, smelly green water, which you're then on the silage pit with no shoes on, because, of course, you'll put it foot straight through the plastic, and then he throws the car tyres at you, and then you end up plastered in green, slimy, horrible, smelly water.
Nice.
Yeah.
You get all the good jobs, don't you, Rach?
I do, absolutely. Yeah.
Has it ever occurred to you that you should be the one doing the throwing of the car tyre rather than the catching?
Yeah, no. He says, go and stand over there.
I'm sure he does.
And off I go, like an idiot.
One of you's got it completely wrong, and the other one's got it completely right.
Absolutely. I think he's done it too many times and realises, I'll send her over there.
Yeah, I think you need to change your ways, right?
Anyway.
But going back to this link, he says, this gentleman says that, I was listening to my friends over at Wiggly Wigglers last night, and they were talking about growing potatoes in tyres. It got me to thinking about my gut reaction that doing so would be a bad idea. You see, being frugal, my gut reaction would be, that's a good idea. But he says, it would seem to me that tyres are made from petroleum and God knows what. Growing my food surrounded by a wall of degrading car leftovers just doesn't feel very naturey. So I decided to do a little poking around to see if the issue's been settled by someone more scientific than my distaste for automobiles. I thought I'd make a few notes of my findings for anyone interested. Anyway, he says here, it turns out that there have been several studies performed on the leaching of tyres when used as a light fill. That pretty much means covered roadways or otherwise grinding them up and using their non-biodegradability as an advantage. They're light, durable, and there are heaps and heaps, literally billions of them, just lying around, starting on fire and serving as mosquito breeding ground. Anyway, he says here, I've got bad news. The results go something like this. If you're responsible for dealing with great piles of tyres and have an application for which you'd like to use them, you find that they are more inert, assuming neutral pH. If, on the other hand, you just don't like the sound of the whole thing, you do your own testing and find heavy metals, a whole salad bar of arsenic, zinc and lead, and I quote, oils and some tasty, sweet hormone disruptors. So there's all sorts of things here. And he says, that didn't help much, did it? And some of the material he's drawn some of his findings from came from the Nantucket Independent, nonetheless. So the Nantucket Independent online, I've just had a look at this morning before coming in here. They've done a whole article, quite a large feature on the pros and cons of using tyres, mainly for making artificial turf with. So what we used to call AstroTurf. They outline several studies. They do say here that many of the studies have been undertaken by the car tyre manufacturers and things. There may be a little bit of bias there. Having said that, I'll read out a couple of the things, a couple of the paragraphs that are here. With the introduction of the latest generation of synthetic field, manufacturers, brokers and consultants promoting the product have provided facile answers to public concerns over tyre crumb infill toxicity by repeatedly insisting that tyres are everywhere and therefore are generally regarded as safe. Tyre crumb infill does not disintegrate or release anything into the air or water. Once installed into the field, the crumb stays in place and does not leach or migrate. And finally, if ingested by a player or carried home by a static cling, there is no harmful effect. These proponents cite studies to back up these responses. However, many of these studies have been funded by the tyre or rubber manufacturers, so earlier, the synthetic field industry or agencies with a primary mission to dispose of tens of millions of used tyres. These studies often lack peer review, use questionable procedures or reach conclusions related to safety rather than health. Reports of metals or organic chemicals leaching from the tyre crumb into surrounding waters are often dismissed as being below regulatory limits or merely of local concern. Other studies suggest the leachate will experience rapid dilution as it moves from the source. Numerous tests over the past several years have prompted renewed interest in the environmental impact of disposed tyres. In 2006, Professor William Crane of City College, New York, sent field samples of crumb to the Rutgers University lab, which reported finding PAHs, zinc, arsenic and lead in the rubber. In October 2006, a Wayland, Massachusetts Conservation Commission review of wetland regulatory issues concerning an artificial turf field prompted the Commission to insist on leachate tests of the water runoff of several existing fields in other communities. The results from a certified lab indicated the presence of zinc, copper, chromium, arsenic, lead, iron, antimony, thallium and a hormone-disrupting synthetic organic octylphenol. The level for lead at 1.5 milligrams per litre exceeded the drinking water action level by 100 times nonetheless, and the highly toxic thallium exceeded the EPA action level by 7 times. The test protocols requested by the consultant did not even look for most compounds of tyres. This past October, the Fairfield Conservation Commission held a similar regulatory review for a private school's proposed artificial turf and hard expert testimony about demonstrated toxic levels of zinc released. The Commission denied the application principally on environmental grounds and noted a prudent and safe alternative to artificial turf exists. What would that be, Rach?
Soil.
Grass, yes, right, precisely, grass, yeah, funny enough. Okay, these local tests here, though, are cited as limited and don't constitute proof of a problem with tyre crumb. So, most earlier studies, it continues, have focused on the impacts of tyre shreds for engineering applications such as roadbeds or landfills. Recently, there have been dozens of more rigorous studies demonstrating the potential for adverse toxicity of tyre leaching into wetlands, aquatic organisms and to humans, but no smoking crumb. This year, responding to the growing concerns, the Connecticut-based non-profit Environment and Human Health, Inc. sponsored an exploratory study with the Connecticut State Experiment Station in June 2007 that demonstrated that 4 organic compounds were released from tyre crumb and approximately 24 others were detected but at lower concentrations. It says here, to conclude, the health impacts of the confirmed compounds ranging from eye and skin irritation to severe irritant to a recognised carcinogen and a suspected endocrine disruptor nonetheless. As EHHI's toxicologist Dr. David Brown explained, it is clear the recycled rubber crumbs are not inert, nor is a high temperature or severe solvent extraction needed to release the metals, volatile organic compounds or semi-volatile organic compounds. He concluded that tyre crumbs constitute a chemical exposure for humans and the environment. As a result of this report, EHHI President Nancy Alderman said there is enough information now to place a moratorium on installing any new fields or playgrounds that use ground rubber tyres until additional research is undertaken. So, there you are.
Wow,
Having said all that.
Yeah, you can conclude all sorts from there, can't you?
So will you be growing your potatoes in tyres this year, Rach?
No, I won't. No, I've got a nice big field that I can grow them in. But I do know that it's also used on horse arenas.
Right.
And they remove the wire from there, chew up the tyres, and it gets mixed with sand, and it makes a fantastic horse arena.
Yeah.
But of course, the horse arena was outside. You may get leaching, I suppose, from that. Most of them I've been to, they're indoor, which wouldn't cause any problems to any surrounding waterways or anything.
Yes, indeed. So you live and learn, and thank you indeed, Simon Sherlock, for sending me over that urban hayseed link. It's great stuff, and obviously the guy spent a great amount of time looking into that. For me, I find that fascinating. Yeah.
Well, okay, Rich, that all came about because Hay on Wye Festival was a washout.
It was.
You were almost drowned there. So, did you go fishing there?
Yeah, no, I didn't go fishing there, Rach, but I did have a couple of days off this last week, really, and the idea being I was going to go down to Devon and do something. We couldn't go out on the first day because it was too rough, but I did manage to get out yesterday.
This is sea fishing.
This is sea fishing,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
So we went out of Boscastle. Many of the listeners will recognise the name Boscastle because there were torrential floods that kind of swept half the town away.
That's
about
right,
4 years ago now, would you believe?
As long as that.
Amazingly enough, yeah. So we set sail. It was kind of rough yesterday. It was real bumpy, but there was some stiff southwesters blowing. But we managed to get out anyway. We were scratching a bit for mackerel, but we did catch some mackerel for bait in the end. And off we went, and we caught a load of pollock. And some nice black bream and things like that. So I've got a freezer full of fish again now, which is ace. But interesting, I wanted to do a little interview with the skipper, you see, because all the seagulls were crying and things. It was a bit bumpy, and I wasn't really feeling in the mood to do it, but I thought I would, because he spent all day in his cabin yattering, hadn't stopped. So I thought, well, he's a nice chap, Ken. I'll have a chat to him. Of course, as soon as I turned his iPod on, he didn't want to speak to me. He didn't want to speak, and the other guys found this really funny. They just thought it was hilarious. So it didn't work out particularly well, but I asked him various things. I mean, pollock, for instance, we were talking about, Hugh Fernley spent quite a lot of time in his fish book with Nick Fisher talking about sustainable fishing stocks and things like that, and they cited pollock as being a fish that can be sustainably sourced because it's not overexploited. However, interestingly, Ken was saying to me yesterday, a pollock, I noted, the ones we were catching yesterday were a bit smaller than the ones we were catching 5 or 6 years ago when we went out. And he said that what had happened is the fishing boats now, because the price in pollock has gone up quite dramatically, it's worth something like £4 a kilo now, wholesale. Good money for a fisherman. The fishing boats have been going out of Padstow and netting a lot of the pollock. So all the 4 and 6 pounders that are coming into shore now from deeper waters for the summer are disappearing, and they're being fished out as well. So there's a kind of irony in that. But what I did do is an interview. I went fishing with Nick Fisher last year because it was a really, I wanted me to go fishing with him as a thank you, providing them with some photographs for their book, the fish book.
Oh, good.
Which we sell, actually, don't we? Is it popular?
I'm not quite sure. I wouldn't know the stats on it, but I have seen a few go out through the door.
Yeah, it's a great book. It is. It's a huge. It's like a volume. It's like the Children's Britannica of fishing. Yeah. So I managed to interview Nick, and it was a long time ago. It was last year now, but anyway, here he is. Fantastic. This seems like an opportune moment, Nick, to get a few words. What are you winding up at the moment? This is a clonking fish.
This is Nick's. It's a very lucky fish for me and unlucky fish for him because I was snagged to the wreck.
Yeah.
Trying to pull myself free, and as I was pulling free, something bit onto one of the other baits, and luckily we got it clear, and now it's coming up, and it is.
Pouting! What a disappointment!
No,
never disappointed.
Never disappointed.
At least it got you out of the wreck. So it's a couple of quid's worth of tackle back.
It hasn't come up very quickly, Richard. So there's every chance he'll go back alive. Which,
okay.
Would be great. We'll give that a go. See, he hasn't. Often, if they come up too quickly, their swim bladder will blow or their eyes will pop. But he's in nice condition.
He is. He's quite a nice looking fish. Well, there you go. So after, and he's going down. Oh, I've seen him go down.
He's finding his feet.
Oh, there you go. Off to go. Excellent. Fantastic. Well, it's an interesting thing with pouting because I remember when I first met you, A couple of years ago, you and Hugh were rattling about all sorts of things, and Hugh was saying about how he likes to keep pouting and use them rather than just throw them, because when they do come to the top, sometimes their eyes pop and their swim bladders pop and whatnot, and often folks will just throw them back in the sea and let them drift away and the seagulls peck on them. But it's quite nice to make use of them, really, so fillet them out.
It's no suffering.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it because we genuinely enjoy the pouting fillets. And I have to say, amongst my kids, pouting fillets, breadcrumbed and fried, homemade tartar sauce to dip it into.
Right.
A real family favourite. So I'm not just being kind of conservation-minded and righteous. I genuinely do enjoy them.
So they say they don't taste like really?
No, the trouble with them is they do have a different digestive system.
Right.
So when you gut them open, you'll smell immediately that they eat a lot of green stuff. And so a bit like deer, they have a green gut, or a rabbit.
Okay.
So the sooner you take that out, the less chance that has of tainting the flesh. So what we tend to do is gut them straight away. And if you've got some crushed ice with you as well, get some ice into that belly cavity and bring the temperature down as much as you can, as quickly as you can. And that will stay a very, very tasty fillet for some time. You go into France, you go into Spain, go to a market in Spain. Yeah, have you eaten roach? Roach are all right.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
I have made a mistake with roach in the past. I made this frito misto for a roach fishing mate of mine.
Right.
And I said, you'll love roach. I've eaten them in France. This is really good. So we were up on a river that I used to fish on in East Anglia and caught all these roach, and I let him go on fishing, and I went back to this little cabin I had and cooked these roach up to serve him this fantastic frito misto. But what I hadn't done, because you cook them whole like whitebait. What I hadn't done was clean them properly, and quite a lot of them still had pinky maggots inside the gills.
Oh, nice.
And so when I served them out, there was not only deep fried roach, it was sort of deep fried pinky and squat maggot too.
Nice. That conjures up all sorts of dodgy images.
He didn't really take to it.
No, I can well imagine. You and Hugh have just written a book recently. It's almost finished. Have you finished now?
It is finished, yeah. It's due out. It's being published on the 15th of November.
Well, I think it's about many things, but part of the book covers sustainable fisheries, doesn't it?
Yeah.
One thing that we've talked about on the Wiggly Podcast before is we've had these
good segue.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had these great debates about cats and things like that, and I'm always intrigued by people who imagine that they live sustainably, and yet they'd use something like some prime yellowfin tuna fillet to feed their cat on. Strikes me a bit bizarre. I mean, the state of our fisheries is quite chronic, isn't it, at the moment?
I can hand on heart and say that there are certain aspects of the fisheries here in the UK which are actually in really great shape.
Right.
And we should be hugely proud of, particularly the shellfish fishery around the UK. The finfish fishery has gone through quite a lot of bad times, but there is some improvement in certain areas. I think it's very dangerous that we don't write fishing off.
Right.
And there is definitely a place for commercial fishing, but we do have to be much more kind of intelligent and sensitive now about how we fish, where we fish, when we fish.
Isn't that life in general, though, isn't it? Just considering things a little bit more, perhaps.
Our kind of impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very much so.
Okay. What's your book called for the benefit of the listener?
The River Cottage Book of Fish.
Right, okay.
It's huge, though. It's 608 pages long. Never mind the quality, feel the width.
Okay.
You get loads of book for your money.
Yeah.
You'll never need a doorstop ever again.
Right. Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Nick.
It's a pleasure.
Well, that was great, Rich. Good listening. I remember you brought me in some Xander once. That was real tasty.
Did you like that, Rach?
I did. Yeah, that was real good.
I'll get you some more of that this year.
Oh, great. That's a river fish, isn't it?
It is a river fish.
Because I don't know my fish very well. But
they're very successful species. They do extremely well, and they've expanded right through many waterways now in the UK.
Oh, that's good. Great. I think now we're going to go into a Monty's podcast.
MontyCast, a weekly fact on farming. Around 67,000 people are directly employed in agriculture in Scotland. This represents about 8% of the rural workforce.
Thank you, Monty. That was brilliant. I think we're going to wrap it up now, aren't we, Rich?
I think so, Rach. We've got lots of things to catch up on, haven't we, today? I know I have.
Yeah, you've got a new computer to have a
I have.
play
I've got
with.
Gareth's going to sort that out with me tomorrow.
Techie Gareth is going to help us.
He's a lot less expensive than Michael.
Absolutely. Ooh, don't say that. Michael won't go near a PC anyway, so he's an Apple freak, and so we best not even attempt to go near Michael with it. There we go, and thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Michael objects to the word free.
Sorry.